The palace of broken caregivers. The crystalline spire of Zephyria pierced the violet sky like a shard of frozen starlight. Within its gleaming walls, the most powerful dragon empire in the known galaxies conducted its ancient rituals of governance and tradition. Servants moved through corridors wide enough to accommodate beings 3 times human size, their footsteps echoing against floors that seemed carved from solidified moonbeams. The palace had stood for 10,000 years, surviving wars, revolutions, and the rise and fall of countless star systems. Yet in recent months it faced an enemy it could not defeat with fleets or diplomacy: a single 4-year-old prince. Maya Chen pushed her cleaning cart through the eastern wing, her worn boots squeaking slightly against the polished floor. She had been working the night maintenance shift for 8 months now, ever since her transport ship had made an emergency landing on Zephyria, and she needed credits to repair it. The job was simple enough: keep her head down, clean what needed cleaning, and stay invisible to the nobility who barely registered her existence. She had perfected the art of being overlooked, which suited her just fine. Back home on the farming colonies of Tau Teti, she had been a teacher before the economic collapse forced her family to scatter across the stars looking for work. Now she scrubbed floors and emptied waste units, sending every spare credit back to her younger sisters. A sound like thunder splitting stone shook the corridor. Maya stopped, her hands tightening on the cart handle. She had heard that sound before, usually followed by the sight of yet another caregiver fleeing the royal nursery with singed clothing and shattered dignity. This would be the 23rd in 4 months if palace gossip could be trusted. The massive doors to Prince Kalen's chambers burst open, and a Thoraxian female stumbled out. The insectoid caregiver's usually pristine exoskeleton was covered in some kind of purple substance, and her compound eyes whirled with distress. She had 6 arms, all of them trembling. "The child is a demon," the Thoraxian hissed, her translator device crackling. "I have raised 17 successful offspring across 4 planets. I have credentials from the Academy of Universal Child Development. But that creature in there is beyond reason, beyond help, beyond hope." She scuttled past Maya without a second glance, leaving a trail of purple droplets that Maya suspected was either juice or some kind of paste. The nursery doors swung slowly closed, but not before Maya caught sight of the devastation within. Furniture overturned, educational holoprojectors sparking and dying on the floor, curtains torn from their fixtures, and in the center of it all a small figure with golden scales and barely visible horns sat alone, surrounded by wreckage. Maya should have walked away. Protocol was clear. Maintenance workers did not interact with royalty. The royal guard would arrive soon to secure the area and summon another caregiver from the endless list of applicants. Her job was to clean up after the chaos, not step into its center. But through the gap in the closing doors she heard something that made her feet move before her brain could stop them. It was the sound of a child crying, trying very hard not to be heard. Maya had 3 younger sisters. She knew that particular sound, the one children made when they thought no one cared enough to listen. She pushed the door open. The nursery was enormous, designed to accommodate a growing dragon prince who would eventually reach 15 feet in height. Right now, though, it simply made the small figure in the center look even more alone. Prince Kalen's scales shimmered between gold and deep crimson, catching the light from the shattered glow globes scattered across the floor. His tail lashed against the ground, leaving scorch marks on the expensive rugs. When he heard the door, his head snapped up, revealing eyes that burned with amber fire. Tears cut tracks down his scaled cheeks, but his expression hardened instantly into something meant to be fierce. "Go away," he shrieked, his young voice cracking. His small hand closed around a teaching tablet worth more than Maya earned in a year, and he hurled it with surprising force. Maya sidestepped it calmly, letting it shatter against the wall behind her. The prince stared at her, clearly expecting her to flee like all the others. Maya simply looked around at the destruction with the practiced eye of someone who had cleaned up after children before. She had seen worse in her classroom back on Tau Ceti. The day little Tommy Brennan had decided to protest math lessons by turning his desk into a fort. "Well," Maya said in a neutral tone, pushing her cart further into the room, "this is quite a mess." The prince's eyes narrowed. "I am Prince Kalen, heir to the Dragon Throne, future Emperor of Zephyria and Supreme Commander of the Flame Legions. You will leave immediately." Maya nodded, beginning to pick up pieces of broken toys. "Okay, Prince Kalen, heir to the Dragon Throne and all that, but you are also someone who just trashed their own room, which means you are going to be sitting in this mess for a while if nobody cleans it up." She examined a damaged action figure, turning it over in her hands. What is this supposed to be? That is Marshal Skyclaw, defender of the Empire, the prince said automatically, then seemed to catch himself. And you have no right to touch it. Put it down. Maya set it carefully on a shelf. He looks like he was pretty important to you. Was he fighting someone before he ended up on the floor? The prince's tail stopped lashing quite so violently. He was fighting the Void Collective. They are the enemies of all civilization. Must have been a pretty intense battle. Did he win? Despite himself, Prince Kalen crawled a bit closer, dragging his tail through the debris. He always wins. He is the greatest warrior in the Empire. Nobody can defeat him. Maya continued cleaning, moving slowly and deliberately, never looking directly at the prince but keeping him in her peripheral vision. Sounds like a good hero. I bet he is pretty brave. The prince was fully engaged now, temporarily forgetting his performance of rage. He is the bravest. Once he fought an entire fleet by himself and saved the emperor. That was my grandfather. Your grandfather must have been grateful to have someone like Marshal Skyclaw protecting him. The prince's expression shifted, something vulnerable crossing his young face. My grandfather says I have to be like Marshal Skyclaw. Strong and fierce and never afraid. But the problem is I am afraid sometimes and then everyone gets angry with me. Maya finally stopped cleaning and sat down on the floor, cross-legged, her back against an overturned cabinet. She was now at eye level with the small dragon prince. Can I tell you a secret? Prince Kalen hesitated, then nodded. His tail had stopped moving entirely. Marshal Skyclaw was probably afraid sometimes too. Being brave does not mean you are never scared. It means you keep going even when you are scared. The prince considered this, his head tilting slightly. His small horns caught the light. The caregivers say I am impossible. They say I am too wild, too angry, too much trouble. They say I will never be a proper prince. Maya felt anger spark in her chest, but she kept her voice gentle. The caregivers were wrong. You are not too much of anything. You are 4 years old, and someone keeps asking you to be something you are not ready to be yet. That does not make you impossible. That makes the people around you impatient. Prince Kalen moved closer, his amber eyes searching her face as if trying to determine whether she was lying. You are not afraid of me. Should I be? You threw one tablet. My sister once threw a whole bookshelf at me during a tantrum. You are going to have to try harder than that. For the first time in months, Prince Kalen's face softened into something close to a smile. Can you really teach me to be brave like Marshal Skyclaw? Maya smiled back. I can teach you to be brave like yourself, which is even better. But first, how about we clean up this mess together? Then maybe you can show me how this whole Void Collective battle was supposed to go. The prince looked around at the destruction he had caused, and for a moment, shame flickered across his features. It is a really big mess. Then it is a good thing we are starting now. Maya stood and offered her hand. The prince stared at it for a long moment. This strange gesture from a species he barely knew. Then his small-scaled hand, still warm from frustrated fire breath, slipped into hers. Together they began to rebuild what had been broken, neither of them knowing that this moment would change not just a prince, but an entire empire.